I'm Arlene Herson, and I'm glad that you can be here today because my guest is a vintage man, the best of his kind. In baseball, a major league player for 23 years, he was the best designated hitter in the American League and the best pinch hitter in the National League. In food, he is a superb cook and owns and operates 2 restaurants that bear his name. In wine, his careful study has resulted in him being invited to join the most prestigious wine society in France. In charity, he founded the Police and Fire Widows and Children's Benefit Fund. And right here at the Friars Club, where we are today, he was overwhelmingly re-elected to the Board of Governors, receiving more votes than anybody else. This year and every year is a good year with people like Rusty Staub around. We'll meet him right after these messages, so stay right there. I'm Arlene Herson, and we're here at the Friars Club with my guest, Rusty Staub. Welcome.
Arlene, good to be here with you.
Actually, we're fellow Friars.
Yes.
And as I mentioned in the introduction, you were overwhelmingly re-elected, so popular guy here.
When you do things in any private club, at one time I was on the House Committee. I tried to help with the restaurant. Being involved in 2 restaurants, I obviously have some expertise in that area. I was able to help a little bit, especially with the management of the club. There's tremendous representation here, and when they asked me to run for the Board of Governors, I was kind of surprised. When I won the first time, I was elated. I just really thought it was neat. It was one of the real pleasant surprises. I really didn't think I would be elected. I was very young. And then for the second year to have the kind of vote that they did, you can't not feel good about something like that.
Yeah. You know, you're really a lucky person. Actually, I was here that night. I was here the night you were overwhelmingly re-elected. And it's because good things seem to come your way. I mean, in going back, you were with the Mets before you retired, 23 years in baseball. But you know, a lot of people, a lot of boys out there, young men, want to be baseball stars. I mean, I think everybody at one point fantasizes about it. But you did it. I mean, you're doing so much. When did you first want to be a professional athlete?
Actually, until I became a junior in high school, I didn't really know what kind of a talent I had. I always had a nice talent as far as being able to compete with the people at my age level. My junior in high school, our high school team won the American Legion Little World Series. So there was a tremendous amount of scouts that were following that. From that, I started to realize that these people were interested in me to try to become a professional ball player. In my senior year, I had a great year in the regular high school season and also in the American Legion season. And at that time, there was no draft, so every club could come and negotiate with you. And having grown up in New Orleans, Louisiana, with all those great restaurants, my father was a school teacher. We didn't go to any of those great restaurants, and at that time, the scouts would come in and take us out to dinner. So for the first time in my life, I got a chance to taste the really great cuisine of New Orleans. I signed a contract. I turned 17 in April of that year, graduated in May from Jesuit High School, and signed on September 11th, 1961. Went directly into instructional ball, and the rest is history.
You know, but it's history, but it's a fairy tale. I mean, first of all, it doesn't even sound real. It wasn't something you really were seeking as a child. I mean, your father didn't go out there and say, play ball, Rusty, and throw balls with you and you would hit and you would be, kind of be honing your craft kind of thing. That didn't happen to you?
Well, sports in general was our outlet. We went to school, we were part of the family. You ate, you slept, you studied, and you played sports. That was the fun of our life. So it was not like something we were preparing to become professional at. I think my father was hoping that eventually we might be able to get a scholarship to go to high school and or college, so that as expensive as much as we think they are expensive now, relatively speaking, they were expensive then too. I was seeking a goal to go to the high school I wanted to, and then up until my junior year, when I realized I might have an opportunity of being a professional player, I was hoping to just get the opportunity to get a scholarship so that, going to college would be a possibility.
Isn't that interesting? Actually, you didn't get a scholarship, but you made a lot of money. So it's not when you was, but you didn't go to college, did you? Because
No.
you went right into the major leagues.
I actually, when I signed in September, I had just finished taking 2 courses during the summertime at Loyola University of the South. That was my curriculum. I took business, math, and economics. Signed a contract, and they wanted me to go to Instructional League in Arizona. I went there, played a whole season in the minor leagues the next year. Actually, in 1962, I was with the Durham Bulls, who have become a little more infamous in these days of television and movies. Then I went back to Instructional League in Arizona after the 62 season. In 63, I made the big club.
Wow,
it was a shock.
Sure did. It was a shock. You know, but you were always outstanding. In your senior year in high school, I read that you were captain of not just the baseball team, but the basketball team, too.
It was a great honor. It really was, especially at Jesuit High School.
Yeah. Did you ever think about basketball? I mean, you're tall, you're 6'2" something, and
I made the right choice. I think about it.
Yeah.
I probably had more time during the school year to work at basketball than we did at baseball. During the football season, you played baseball. I mean, you played basketball all the time. During the basketball season, you were there, and then when basketball season ended, then I would get to baseball and I'd play the full summer. And as soon as the summer was over, after American Legion was over, I would be going right back into starting to work out at basketball again. So I actually probably spent 5 months at baseball and 7 months at basketball.
Pretty good way to.
And had a scholarship offer to Fordham up here, which I was considering.
And obviously.
Well, then I was offered that
Yeah.
wonderful contract as a youngster to be offered enough money to get your family into a situation where the houses are paid for, the cars, and have a few little things that were nice in the house. That was the greatest thing to be able to do with my family when I signed. That I felt a fulfillment that you don't normally feel at that age.
That's it. Well, the first contract was $100,000, which was a lot of money in those days.
When I signed, the first year I played, I got $7,000 salary. And that was a big salary for a minor league player at that time. The entire bonus and payments that were made were $125,000. So the first contract that I was involved with was a $132,000 package for the family.
Okay, which is a lot of money.
And I went directly to the nearest church, knelt, and said, "Thank you very much." I'm not kidding you.
Okay, but what do you think about the salaries that athletes are getting these days? I mean, millions of dollars.
In one aspect of it, I say that they're in an industry that's doing extremely well. People in the movies were being paid $1 million, and then all of a sudden they said that's crazy, and they let them participate in a percentage of the movie, and the great ones were starting to make $4 and $5 million. They wanted them to go back to making $1 million salary. It's the entertainment business. No matter what you want to say about sports, it's a competitive field. It's athletics, but it's also entertainment. As long as the industry can support it, I mean, I don't think you can explain any other way is that the owners are paying the salaries. I have been shocked by how quick they have gone from the $2 million plateau, which seemed to be this insurmountable peak, to $5. I mean, I almost, when they signed Canseco, I went, I think they're losing their minds. I'm not kidding you. It's tough not to feel that way. Yeah. It really.
And do you feel, gee, I thought $135,000 was a lot of money. Why didn't I get $5 million?
Well, again, you have ownership of different ball clubs that have gone out and done this. They must feel that it's economically prudent for them to do that. That's the only way you can approach it.
But I was just wondering, you know, what? Well, we have to take a break, but we have to say now, if it was those days and it was these days, what would Rusty Staub be worth? Let's think about that. Let's take a break.
I don't want to think about that.
We're speaking with Rusty Staub. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. We're here at the Friars Club with my guest, Rusty Staub. Okay, we're not going to answer that question before because Rusty Staub's worth a lot, and we can't compare it with anybody out there these days. But you were so lucky, no matter how much you were paid. Here you were, 17, 18, 19, on the road, major leagues. What was that like for you? Was that?
I was actually more prepared for the baseball end than I was for the life end of it. I had been brought up by a Catholic family. Went to Catholic school. The Jesuits were tremendous disciplinarians. When I signed, my dating experiences were very limited, just the way it was. My mom has had some great stories to tell people how much I've made up after the fact, which she laughs about. But in essence, when I first came up, I was very, very naive to life. I was much more ready to go on the field than I was to come off it and handle all the things that were happening around me. They over-publicized me. They made me into Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams and Joe D and everybody combined. And I was this kid that had a pretty good baseball talent, but was not ready at all for this surge of attention that came my way. And I kind of retreated from it. That was about the only way I could handle it. Some people felt I was aloof, but what I was trying not to get hurt.
That's interesting, because you were very young, and there you were living away from home, which is part of it. Was that difficult too, living away from home?
Well, when I first left and went to the first instructional league, it was the first time I really left for any length of time. After a period of time, you either get tough and handle it, or you don't make it. Whatever the Jesuits and my parents dug into me said to me that if I want to do this, I have to get to be tougher. I have to handle all of these things. I can't worry what everybody thinks about me anymore. You know, if I have to be tough on somebody to succeed, then I'm going to be tough. What it really means is that you can't just succumb to everybody else's wishes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to learn how to say no. I do probably 80 dinners a year right now, charity things, but I have to say no probably 150 times a year. But there's got to be a limit. You have to learn how to say no so that you can concentrate and have the discipline to succeed at what you're trying to do.
True, and as a matter of fact, when you say all the dinners that you do, and you do lots of charity, and you're so busy, you have two restaurants, one called Rusty's and one called Rusty Staub's on Fifth, both entirely different, and I've eaten in both, and they're both wonderful, but on the road again, because that's where you started to cook, I understand, because, I mean, in order to be in the restaurant business, you have to understand food. Was it on the road that you started to cook?
It was actually in that first trip out to Arizona. We were taking down about $160 a month net a piece, which didn't leave a lot to go out and eat in any expensive restaurants. So I kind of told the guys, I had always watched my dad barbecue, and I could do stuff like that. In those years, they were telling you meat and potatoes, meat and potatoes. It wasn't like now where, you know, it's pasta and fish and chicken. My dad always had to have a second job. It was usually with a company that brokered meats. So I learned about meat cutting, and I looked in the phone book, and I saw names of guys. I made a couple of calls. One of the two guys, very gracious to us, sold directly to us, and we had as good a food to eat as anybody anywhere in Arizona during that time. But we cooked it all ourselves, and I'd be writing home, Mom, tell me how to cook a roast. And that's how it all started. It started out of necessity. And then the more I progressed in baseball, with this orange crop on top of my head, the more it became difficult for me when I started playing in Houston to go into a restaurant and just be with my group. I wound up having someone wanting an autograph, and I was always gracious as I could be. But it does start to get to you when you're in a conversation with someone and someone interrupts you all the time. Or if you're in your meal and someone comes up and says, excuse me, I don't mean to bother you. That's a contradiction, you know.
Yeah.
So but you have to learn how to handle that. So I started saying, well, why don't you come over to the house and I'll whip something up. And people started reacting so different to me when I started doing things like that, that I realized that there was something special to cooking for people in your own home. And that's how it started. And I started to want to get better and better at it. I studied our own Louisiana cookery at home. I had my mother, who was a great cook, teach me a lot of the things that she did. And other families, when I would go to a holiday party, I would go in the back of the kitchen and want to know what they were doing, because I felt like it might be something I could learn from my personal background to share with other people.
That's interesting, and how you're using it now in your life, and growing up in New Orleans, which really, I mean, that's where all wonderful food is from. But, when you mention, I shouldn't say all wonderful food, but there's a lot of wonderful food in New Orleans. You mentioned your red crop, your red hair. I mean, obviously you stand out in a crowd. When you were in Montreal, they called you very popular and very... Le Grand Orange, am I saying?
Le Grand Orange, Le Grand Orange. Okay. That was actually given to me by an English writer named Ted Blackman. It was in our first year. We had gone on a 20-game losing streak, I believe it was. And I hit a home run. We're playing the Dodgers. I hit a home run in the game, and made a game-saving catch at the end of the game. And the headline was, and he coined it the first time, you know, great day for the Expos and Le Grand Orange. And from that day forward, it has just stuck. It's actually been a lot of fun. My own company is called Le Grand Orange Inc. And it originally, you know, was something that stemmed out of in Montreal, but has just permeated my life ever since.
That's it. Well, it's very fitting and very appropriate. You played for Texas, for Houston, Montreal. Then what? Then it was
6 years in Houston, 3 in Montreal, and then I came here for my first 4 years with the Mets. I went on to Detroit for 3.5, a half a year back with the Expos, and then the one that everybody usually forgets, I played 1980 with the Texas Rangers, and then 5 more years back with the Mets.
Wow. Okay, a lot of different places to go to. We're going to talk about what it's like to be in all those different places when we come back.
All right.
We're speaking with Rusty Staub here at the Friars Club. We'll be right back. We're here with Rusty Staub at the Friars Club. Just before we was the break, we talked about the fact of all the different clubs that you had been to. Now, you get traded in baseball. Is there ever a time that you get traded that you don't want to be traded?
There are times. Actually, when I came to New York, it was the only time it ever shocked me. The entity I had become, Le Grand Orange, was such a big deal in Montreal, and I was doing so much work in the country trying to help baseball that's the only one that floored me. All the other ones I really anticipated or felt were coming.
You did, okay. So it was not, when it said it floored you in that you didn't want to come here, or floored you being
I
here?
had no idea it was coming. When I left Houston, I knew I was going to leave there. When I left New York the first time, I knew there was a good chance I would be traded. And all the way down the line, it was never a time that I was, after I got over that original naivete in the beginning, I really started understanding what the business was about. And I really, that was the only time in my career that someone fooled me and hit me where I wasn't expecting something. I didn't realize it was a possibility.
That's it. So what if you say, I don't want to go?
You have no choice.
You have no choice. Either you're out, you do
Especially
it or
then. There are a few more rules for the players nowadays as far as free agency being available to them, being able to not be traded under certain circumstances or to certain places. There are more benefits than they were in the earlier days. But it's still out there all the time.
But you did okay. Oh, I'm glad you came to New York. I don't care what happened, but we're glad you're
Myself.
here. Yeah. But I heard that one of your teammates said that you are, I mean, I mentioned the vintage of the best of whatever. He said that you have more idiosyncrasies than anybody, that getting ready to play a game was like a science with you. Do you really have idiosyncrasies? What did you do getting ready for a game?
I had certain things that I did to prepare myself. I tried to take a nap every day. When I got to the ballpark, I had a routine that I followed. It was a methodical thing that got me prepared to play. It could have been anything. It doesn't make any difference. You know, whatever it was, it was. Anybody who is judicious in doing certain things the same way all the time to get themselves ready, if they're not successful, then they got to change. But when you're successful doing it, you don't want to change. And there would be some things that I would block out. I mean, people say, why don't you do this? I'm not doing that. But we all have idiosyncrasies, and I had my fair share, believe me.
Okay, but you're not going to tell us what they are.
Well, it's just like superstitions. If you talk about it, it's supposed to be bad luck.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. Are you superstitious? Do you have to be superstitious to, you know, before you play a game, if you bend down this way or that way?
There's only those people that admit it and the ones that lie about it. That's all there is.
Okay, so we have that answer. You know, curious, you are so successful. Your restaurants, you're out there doing charity work. You're good looking, popular, single.
Well, one of the things that happened in my life was I really have been very fortunate. I have met some wonderful women in my life that I've had the chance to share some time with. Being traded in my career at times really was as much a cog in busting up some relationships I had as anything. 6 years in Houston, I was just starting to mature as a man, broke up a relationship. I had a wonderful relationship in Montreal, 3 years, see you later. I came to New York. I was here for 4 years, on to Detroit. I really didn't get involved a great deal emotionally in Detroit. I dated and I had some people I enjoyed being with. But when I came back, I also had 1 year in Dallas-Fort Worth after spending a half a year back with the Montreal Expos. But it wasn't until I got back here, and I have had a couple of very emotional involvements here, that it's very difficult for a woman to put up with the time and effort that's involved in someone who not only was a ball player, but now I run 2 restaurants. I'm involved in so many charity things as a joke. And sometimes a woman feels like she's the third wheel. And I can't change that. You know, my life is the way it is. No one wants to not have somebody that they care about or is caring about them. Everybody wants that. Sometimes it's just not there, and I don't worry about it. I've had some wonderful times in my life, and I hope that I'm going to have them again.
And you have so many wonderful things to share. By the way, girls, he's still single, so, but however, wines. I mean, there's some, when you do something, you do it full force. I mean, you were a Major League Baseball player, you were a star, you have restaurants that are wonderful. Wine, I mean, you are like the Hall of Fame of wine in terms of what you've done.
I think it's as much because of the fact that I'm a baseball player that people are excited about what I've done in wine. Wine is an integral part of the eating experience, and it means a great deal to me. It's a very, very important part of my life.
Well, whatever you do so well. I'm glad that you had a chance to come and share some time with us, and I thank you very much for being here, and I'm glad we could do it at the Friars Club, where Rusty Staub is also a star.
Arlene, we'll do it again.
You bet. Thank you. I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know Rusty Staub. I know that I certainly have, and I hope that you'll join us again next week. Meantime, good night. Hope to see you then.